Good afternoon, colleagues. We have quite a few participants still joining us, so we're going to wait another minute. If you feel comfortable, please feel free to share your camera. If not, that's okay too. We are thankful that you are with us this afternoon. Okay, our time is limited, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Julia Filial, and I have the distinct honor of serving as Broward College's Associate Vice President for the Center for Teaching Excellence and Learning, which is a very long title to say that I have the privilege of leading a team that is committed to supporting the professional development and learning of close to 5,000 full and part-time employees at Broward College. I've served the college for close to 17 years in a variety of roles within academic affairs. Today, I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Michelle Levine and Lisa Burgess. Michelle Levine has been an educator for over 25 years and a proud member of the Broward College family for almost 18 years. She has served as the District Director of Faculty Development for the past 3 years. And prior to assuming her current role, Michelle was a computer science faculty member for 14 years, and she continues to teach every semester. Michelle was the recipient of a Professor of the Year award in 2015. She is passionate about lifelong learning and is committed to supporting both students and colleagues on their educational journeys. Lisa Burgess has been an educator for over 21 years with Broward College. She's currently a full-time tenured faculty member within biological sciences and also serves as a faculty development coordinator for CTEL and her own department, as well as this year for international education. She is passionate about course and curriculum development, instructional technology, and faculty development. Thank you all for joining us today as we're able to share with you what we've done in addressing the question that Dr. Stout posed to all of us in her opening remarks. How are we at Broward College strategically and intentionally tying our teaching and learning to our equity work? Now, before I go ahead and get started, please know that I'm not going to be reading these PowerPoint slides and that we will drop in the PowerPoint to the chat area so you have it for future reference. And if at any point you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and drop those in the chat, and we will hopefully have time at the end of our presentation to answer the questions that you may have. Broward College is committed to excellence in teaching and learning and equitable learning outcomes, which is evidenced in the resources, both human and financial, that have been dedicated to the Center for Teaching Excellence and Learning and our overall professional development. One of our most impactful partnerships for professional development and specifically faculty development is our collaboration with the Association of College and University Educators. In the summer of 2017, when our enrollment and budget situation looked a little bit different than it does today, our then provost, Dr. Marie DeSanctis, who currently serves as the president of the Community College of Denver, led a small group of faculty and staff to develop a project plan for the implementation of the Association of College and University Educators Effective Teaching Practices Certification. Our first cohort of participants included both full-time faculty as well as college administrators who were also teaching at the college at the time. The reason why Dr. DeSanctis led and pushed for us to start this partnership with ACUE was because we have amazing faculty here at the college. We have just over 400 full-time faculty, and depending on our enrollment, close to 2,000 adjuncts. And they are amazing experts in their area of expertise, like Professor Burgess in biological science and Michelle in computer science. And most of them, with the exception of Michelle, haven't had formal education in teaching pedagogy and strategies. So the ACUE partnership and the Effective Teaching Practices course was our opportunity to bridge that content area knowledge and expertise with appropriate teaching practices, strategies, and student success work. So when that initial cohort went through, one of my favorite stories, I'm a qualitative researcher at my core and at my heart. And one of my favorite stories I heard was from one of our accounting faculty members, actually. He's been at the college for over 20 years, is a student advocate. He has chaired student clubs, has mentored students, has found internships with students. So he's someone that you would say is engaged in student success efforts throughout the college. And I'll never forget the day I was copying papers for a meeting we were having. And he came up to me and he said, Julia, he goes, I'm failing. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, I have set all of these deadlines. I love ACUE. I love my course. I'm learning so much. I have intention to do all of the work. And he goes, and Julia, I've missed every single deadline I have set for myself. And he's like, I don't know if I can do this. And I looked at him and I said, Alan, if you've learned nothing else in ACUE, you have gone out of the course what I was hoping. And he looked at me, he goes, I forgot how hard it is to be a student. And here's someone who's engaged with students all the time, right? Someone that we would say is a student advocate. And I said to him, I said, Alan, you're now experiencing firsthand as a reminder how hard it is to manage work, because he, obviously working full-time as a faculty member, wife and 2 children, what it meant to be a partner and to be a parent, what it meant to have committee work, and wanting to meet these goals for his course. And really what we have found at Broward College, we have course success rates for ACUE for our faculty above the ACUE national standard. They're often above 90, 95%, where the ACUE national average, I believe, is in the 80s. And when we tell our faculty all the time that they're serving as the guides and the mentors to our students who, just like Alan, are experiencing all of these different push and pulls that are decreasing their bandwidth to actually meet their educational outcomes. So we knew we had these qualitative stories that faculty were going through this program and coming out on the other side better practitioners. But it wasn't until 2020 when we were able to dive into the course success rates of our students from that initial cohort in 2017 and the secondary cohort in 2018, that we had the quantitative evidence to show the positive impact. And that's what you see on the screen here. We were able to eliminate and reduce the inequitable outcomes as it relates to course success, course retention, and then subsequent success in courses beyond that initial course with the ACUE credentialed faculty member. And the quantitative data from our student success is very compelling, as well as the faculty data in terms of their reflection and their impact on their instructional practices and how they felt prior to their confidence levels prior to taking the course, the effective teaching practices course, to their confidence levels after taking the course. And again, I know I'm going through these slides quickly, but I promise we'll drop them in the chat for you. So our faculty felt more confident after taking the ACUE course, and our students felt a greater sense of belonging and connectedness to our faculty in their ACUE credentialed courses with their ACUE credentialed faculty. So not only did it improve our teaching practices, it also helped to improve our student success rates and the overall student experience and the sense of belonging on our campuses. It also changed how we at the Center for Teaching Excellence and Learning, how we developed our complementary faculty development offerings and the different independent workshops that we were offering through the center. Dr. Stout also challenged us in the mornings, the earlier session, about outreach to our adjuncts. And we are happy to say that starting in the 2018 and the 2019 and now in the 2020 cohorts, we have included our adjuncts. So many of our adjuncts are now also taking the ACUE Effective Teaching Practices course, as well as the micro-credentials that we launched this past year. So I've done way too much talking. I really want to turn it over to Michelle and Lisa, and we have a couple of questions for them. Not only are Michelle and Lisa amazing colleagues, they're also ACUE superfans. They are both fully credentialed in the Effective Teaching Practices course, as well as both of them have completed a few micro-credentials in the Effective Online Teaching Practices course. So Michelle, can you please tell us what are 2 strategies that you learned during your effective teaching practices course that you're still using in your classes today?
Yeah, so it's very difficult to name just two. And in one of those slides, you can see there were actually thousands of strategies learned by our faculty, because there's so many amazing practical research-based, evidence-based strategies you can implement from the course. But the two that I'm going to talk about both have to do with feedback in some way. So I am an Agile enthusiast, and I really truly believe in continuous feedback for continuous improvement. So one of the strategies is called Start, Stop, Continue. And what you do is you ask your students, what are some things you would like me to start doing, to stop doing, and to continue doing? And what I really love about this strategy is, oftentimes we wait until the end of the semester to get our student evaluations. And at that point, it's kind of too late for the students who are in your current class for you to implement anything that you've learned from that evaluation. What I like to do is do this about a third to a half of the way through the semester. So long enough in that we've had a chance to establish a rapport and establish some type of rhythm in the class, but also that there's still enough time to change and iterate and pivot if necessary. And what I usually do, well, what I did in the remote environment is I used idea boards, which is kind of like a digital Post-it note board. And what's nice about it is the students are able to see what other students are posting and even like it and comment on the other posts. And what's interesting is that some students, what they put in the stop is the same thing that other students put in the continue. And I like to do this on purpose because I think it's important for the students to see that they're diverse learners, everybody learns differently, and that I am really trying to incorporate everybody's feedback to make an equitable situation for all, and taking in all of the different feedback and then pivoting and responding as necessary to their needs. And I really do try to make an effort to intentionally change what I'm doing based on that feedback. And I get some really great feedback that has really helped me as an instructor. So that's my first one. And my second one is using advice cards. So advice cards are when you ask your current students to give advice to your future students, and then you share that advice with those students. And I do it on several different levels. So I ask for advice sometimes at the project level. So I do a semester-long group project with my students. And so there's a lot of nuances. They have to learn how to collaborate, and especially in the remote environment, they had to collaborate virtually. So I asked them to give advice about the project itself. What advice would you give to future students who work on this team project? Also about the course itself. So what is some advice you would give to students who are taking this course in the future? And then even sometimes about the modality. So what advice would you give to future online learners? And so the students really appreciate this because they're hearing it from their peers. And I think, we all know that our students today are not the same as our students 5 years ago, 3 years ago, or even 1 year ago. They're constantly evolving and changing, and especially this past year has taught us that we need to really be flexible with what we're doing. And the students often mention things that even I would not have thought about and give really, really great advice to the students. One thing they started doing this past semester is they self-organized a WhatsApp group in both of my classes that I was teaching. And one of them invited me in, and one of them I didn't even find out that they had the WhatsApp until the end of the semester. So just really great tools and ways that they're using digital tools to collaborate, and I'm learning from them. So Start, Stop, Continue, and advice cards are the two that I am going to talk about today.
Thank you, Michelle. Lisa, how about you?
The strategies I took away that I use the most often and are probably my favorites. The first is micro lectures. I do a lot of recorded lectures. So I provide recorded micro lectures, and with those, I provide an outline for students to follow through. I can use those as assessments or as a points value within the course to make sure students are staying on track and keeping up with the lectures. And my second strategy actually works with those micro lectures. So in the remote environment, it was much easier, or it was much more equitable for the students to provide them with these micro lectures in a recorded format. I upload them to YouTube, then link them into my D2L course shell. This allowed students to be able to watch those lectures and listen to them, whether it was on their iPhone or iPad, a laptop. I had students tell me they would listen to them while they were driving to work, or they were in the car working out, those sorts of things. So the micro lectures were really helpful for students. And then providing the outlines really allowed them to pull from those lectures the most important content. In conjunction with that was my second strategy, which is Muddiest Point. In Muddiest Point, students come to class with, I always tell them 3 questions. Bring me a minimum of 3. A minimum of 3 questions from the micro lecture that you want more information on, or that perhaps you didn't understand, or you need more explanation. So I would take a single micro lecture, and they would give me maybe 1 question on that one. Each class meeting that we would have, they would be required to watch several micro lectures before coming to class. And this way all of the students could collaborate. When we moved over to remote, I could add something such as a Google Doc and give the students in the chat in Zoom the link to the Google Doc. Each of the students could go into the Google Doc and start typing in their own questions. What was great about the Google Doc is that it is anonymous. So students felt, students that are normally very shy felt very comfortable being able to type into the Google Doc, and we could address a lot of those questions together as a class. And it really allowed students to see that they weren't the only ones that maybe didn't understand that content, and that it helped create a greater sense of community within the class. So I like to use those 2 strategies together on a fairly regular basis.
Thank you, Michelle and Lisa. And I'm going to pivot here. So hopefully you both are ready, because I'm going off script. So, today and tomorrow, we're learning a lot about equity within the teaching and learning space. And we have seen through the pandemic the past year how we knew inequities were there, but the pandemic has just brought those to the forefront. How has these strategies that you just talked about, how has that increased equitable learning outcomes for your students?
So I do see a question in the chat about, was our class synchronous? And I had both synchronous and asynchronous. And I will say that one of the great things about the ACUE strategies is there are 2 courses. There's the effective teaching practices and the effective online teaching practices, but pretty much all of the strategies can be adapted to different modalities. And so I felt that we were at such an advantage when we transitioned to remote learning, because we already had these practices in place. And all of our faculty who had gone through the course also expressed the same kind of sentiment that, thank goodness I had already taken ACUE, because I already had strategies to welcome my students to class. I just maybe need to tweak it a little bit for the remote environment. I already had inclusive strategies. I already, knew how to write good assessments and use alternative assessments. So when we talk about academic integrity and how difficult that was in the transition to remote, having those alternative assessments in place really helped with our transition to remote learning. So, having started ACUE prior to the pandemic was invaluable to us.
Thanks, Michelle. I knew I threw you a curveball. Lisa, would you mind talking about, I'm going to lead you here for a second. Would you mind sharing how looking at your data with your associate dean, what that was able, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. In this past fall, for the first time, the college was tracking success rates and grades with students for individual faculty members. And we were looking at collective data across different disciplines. So if I taught the same class 3 times in a semester, they would just kind of bulk all 3 of those classes together and just look at the success rates and grade averages of those students. And this was done just for informational purposes. And I sat down with my AD. We had a meeting set up. I sat down with my AD, and we were going through them, and I teach a general education biology course that's kind of a non-majors course. And between 2017 and my 2018 grade average, it almost doubled. It was around a 40% increase in success rates for my students. And then in 2019, it was up about another 5 to 7%. and just gradually increased until we got to the current year. And she asked me, she said, what did you do in 2018? I mean, she said, these numbers are crazy. And it was in that particular course. My other courses were also increased, but that specific course really just saw a huge increase in success. And I just realized, I said, oh my gosh, that's when I took ACUE. And I had been part of the process of ACUE is incorporating those practices while you are taking the course. So I was beginning to incorporate a whole lot of ACUE practices all at the same time in that course. And the students were really starting to kind of mesh. And I chose that particular course to see if I saw greater success over time. So just even while I was taking the class, I saw a really big increase. And one thing I wanted to address that Julia talked about was equity in the course. And one thing that I have really taken away from ACUE and has been very important for me is inclusion. That's been a big part of ACUE for me, and understanding the necessity for inclusion. I don't think I had a really great understanding of it. And just a very quick story, Julia. One example of that is I changed my name title in Zoom I told Michelle about this, to she, her, hers. And the very first class meeting I had after I changed my name, a student commented and said, wow, Professor B, I'd love to see that you put your pronouns up. And that was it for me. I was sold. I mean, it was within the first 10 minutes of the first class meeting I had after doing that, a student noticed that. And that really drove home something that ACUE brought to light for me, was that inclusion is just so necessary. It's just so necessary in the courses, like really consciously making that a part of my courses.
Thank you, Lisa. And colleagues, thank you for your questions in the chat. I'm trying to answer those as quickly as I can and as honestly as I can. The next question that I have for you, Lisa and Michelle, if you don't mind addressing it, is, we within the Center of Teaching Excellence and Learning are better practitioners because of our partnership with ACUE. I can say that wholeheartedly. And it's because we have been challenged to rethink how we do things within the center in terms of our ongoing support for faculty and their development. Can you tell me a little bit about how your role within CTEL has changed because of ACUE?
I'll go first on this one, Michelle. With ACUE, one of the things that Michelle and I like to do together is Michelle and I are very interested in assessments and creating authentic assessments, alternatives, universal design learning, those sorts of formats. And ACUE is very in line with that. And when we develop workshops and faculty development courses together, Michelle and I always try to kind of practice what we preach. And we do introduce ACUE strategies. We talk about these ACUE strategies. It's become more and more helpful as the time has gone by, as more and more faculty have become ACUE credentialed, whether it's a full effective teaching practices credential or even just a micro credential. They're very familiar with it in our faculty development courses. So when we introduce these ACUE strategies, we oftentimes get faculty that say, hey, we've used that too, and we can have really great open discussions about it and introduce to them new ways to incorporate those strategies into their courses that they may not have thought of before.
Yeah, and we make sure that we always model those strategies in the courses that we're offering. So one of the things that when we first transitioned, we had to train over, I don't know, thousands of people to transition to, first it was Blackboard Collaborate and then to Zoom. And so we really tried to use the UDL principles of creating multiple forms of expression, representation, and engagement. And so we created training aids, but we did them in multiple versions. So we would have the text-based version and then also the micro video to explain how to do different things in Zoom. And the micro videos, as Lisa said, have been just an amazing tool that we're seeing our faculty just use on a wide scale now in so many different ways, as a course intro video, a course walkthrough, just to go over a topic that is a pain point in a class and give them that extra way to view it. And we've had, we teach our faculty also how to upload to YouTube so that it's captioned, and talk, a lot about that UDL. Another thing that was really valuable to us when we transitioned was the ACUE free online teaching toolkit. rather than reinvent the wheel, what we did was there were 6 webinars that were in there on various topics. And what we would do is we would do like a 2-part series where we would have the faculty go out and watch the webinar, and then we'd come together and discuss it and do breakout sessions and implement some of those strategies together and talk about how we're going to implement those strategies in our classes. So it really has helped us not just with our students, but to become much better faculty developers.
Thank you, Michelle and Lisa. We have about 4 more minutes. So my final question to each of you is, what are maybe 1 or 2 other benefits that have come out of our partnership and engagement with ACUE? Michelle, do you want to start?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I was going to reply to a chat, but I'm trying to do 2 things at one time. Yes, so one of the most amazing things that has come out of it is a partnership with some other institutions. So Dr. Jody Robeson, who is from Indian River State College, reached out to myself and 3 other institutions in Florida, Miami-Dade College, Santa Fe College, and Florida Gateway College, and asked us if we wanted to be part of a professional development learning community, which we now call the Coffee Shop. And this has been just an amazing platform for us to come together as educators. We offer sessions where we invite faculty to come and share. These are past ACUE, either current ACUE participants or past ACUE graduates, to come and share and present about strategies that they have learned in ACUE and their take on it. And then we do breakout sessions where we get together with colleagues from other institutions. And it started out with just Florida institutions, but now we have people participating from all over the country. We welcome everybody to come and join us if you're interested. I believe Angelica is going to put, yep, here it is. Angelica is putting our YouTube channel in the chat, and in that YouTube channel is some contact information. If you're interested, we would love to invite you to be part of our amazing learning community where we're learning from each other as faculty developers.
And Lisa, would you like to tell our colleagues how we're taking this on the world stage?
On the global stage, yes, this year I was asked to be the faculty development coordinator for our international education department. We have about 15 centers around the world that we partner with. These are international schools that partner with Broward College to offer associate degrees at the international level from BC, and then those students can then transfer to the United States with a US degree. So we have these partners all over the world, and we are now offering our first ACUE cohort this fall for our international faculty, so that they will be able to become part of, the full faculty. We're trying to incorporate these centers more into the faculty development at the college and introducing these active learning strategies around the world. The first cohort will be for active learning strategies micro-credentials. So we're really excited to have our international faculty, our international partners join us. This is also great because it will give the students a very smooth transition to many of the active learning strategies that are used in the US education system that they may not be introduced to in their home country. So we like that it is, we're going to start doing these virtual exchanges and other practices, including ACUE strategies with our international faculty. So we're very excited about that.
Thank you, Lisa. And I would be remiss if I didn't just acknowledge our president, President Gregory Adam Howell, and our provost, Dr. Nassi, who are both committed to teaching excellence and equitable learning outcomes and eradicating inequities. And they have backed up that commitment with really a strong partnership with ACUE. There is a financial commitment, but we have the quantitative and qualitative evidence to document its impact. And we are looking forward to next year bringing on the micro-credential that was recently released by ACUE that's specifically looking at equitable learning and inclusive learning. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have. I'll put my contact information in the chat, and thank you so much for joining all of us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Wendy, I'm sorry for not acknowledging you. Thank you for being here.